Welcome to Ancient Mysteries. I'm your host, Ben Carter, and in today's episode we're investigating one of the greatest legends of the ancient world, a tale of a magnificent civilization said to possess incredible knowledge and power that vanished in a single cataclysmic night. Was Atlantis a real place swallowed by the sea, or a symbolic warning etched into myth? The truth may lie deeper than we've ever imagined. The earliest and most detailed account of Atlantis comes from the Greek philosopher Plato, writing in the 4th century BCE. In two of his dialogues, the Timaeus and the Critias, Plato describes a powerful and advanced civilization that existed over 9,000 years before his time. According to his account, Atlantis was a vast island located beyond the Pillars of Heracles, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. It was said to be larger than Libya and Asia combined, a lush land blessed with fertile soil, abundant wildlife, and an intricate system of canals and harbours that supported a prosperous maritime empire. Plato claimed that the Atlanteans were originally noble and virtuous, living in harmony with nature and guided by a divine inheritance. They possessed remarkable technologies, knowledge of metallurgy, advanced agriculture, and a highly organised social order. Their capital was a marvel of concentric rings, alternating circles of land and water, connected by bridges and tunnels, adorned with temples, palaces, and fountains made from precious metals and rare stones. This was not a crude prehistoric people, but a civilization of astonishing sophistication. However, as Plato tells it, the Atlanteans gradually became corrupt, arrogant, and obsessed with power. Their desire to dominate the world led them into conflict with the virtuous people of ancient Athens. The gods, displeased with Atlantis' moral decay, punished them. In a single violent day and night, earthquakes and floods consumed the island, sinking it into the sea and erasing its memory from the surface of the earth. Plato insists that the story of Atlantis was not his invention. He attributes the tale to Solon, a respected Athenian lawmaker, who, according to legend, learned of Atlantis from Egyptian priests during a visit to the city of Sais. The priests allegedly told Solon that the story of Atlantis had been preserved on ancient temple walls, recorded in sacred hieroglyphs thousands of years old. If true, this would mean that the knowledge of Atlantis predated even the most ancient Greek civilization by millennia. Whether this account was historical or allegorical has been debated for centuries. Some believe Plato used Atlantis as a cautionary tale, a philosophical parable warning against hubris and the dangers of imperial overreach. Others argue that such precise detail, including measurements, geographic markers, and a structured timeline, suggests he was drawing from something more than metaphor. The level of specificity is unusual for a purely allegorical narrative, leading many to wonder if Plato had access to a real, though ancient and fragmentary, oral tradition. What we know of Atlantis begins and ends with Plato. No contemporary Greek sources corroborate his tale, and no archaeological evidence has definitively confirmed the existence of such a civilization. Still, the legend has endured for over 2,000 years. From classical historians to modern explorers, Atlantis has inspired relentless searching, speculation, and scholarship. It has become a symbol of lost knowledge, fallen greatness, and the tantalizing possibility that our history may not be as complete as we think. Plato's account provides more than just the origin story of Atlantis. It also sets the stage for a much deeper question. Was this a mere invention to support his philosophical ideals, or a distorted memory of a real civilization lost to time and cataclysm? The answer remains buried beneath layers of history, myth, and shifting continents. But the foundation of the mystery is laid here, in the ancient words of a philosopher, echoing across millennia, and pointing towards something perhaps once real, now forgotten. The mystery deepens when considering just how specific Plato was in describing Atlantis. He didn't speak in vague poetic metaphors. He offered numbers, precise dimensions of buildings, distances between harbours, and even population estimates. The capital city, according to him, was made up of alternating rings of land and water, 3 of each, with a central island housing a temple dedicated to Poseidon. The outermost ring measured nearly 8 kilometres in diameter. The city was said to be perfectly engineered for both aesthetics and defence. surrounded by high walls plated with brass, tin, and a mysterious metal called orichalcum, second only to gold in value. Atlantis' society, as described, was structured with a rigid yet balanced hierarchy. 10 kings ruled 10 regions, all descended from a common ancestor, Poseidon himself, who had mated with a mortal woman and fathered 5 sets of twin sons. This royal lineage governed Atlantis with a set of divine laws inscribed on a sacred pillar in the Temple of Poseidon. Their economy was prosperous, bolstered by agriculture, mining, and trade. The landscape, according to Plato, was a paradise. Warm springs flowed near the capital, herds of elephants roamed the fertile plains, and rare fruits grew in abundance. In every way, Atlantis was portrayed not just as advanced, but as the pinnacle of ancient civilization. And yet, this flourishing society fell. Plato says their downfall was not due to external enemies, but to internal decay. The once divine nature of the Atlanteans became diluted with mortal corruption. Their spiritual essence weakened. Greed, materialism, and the lust for conquest consumed them. They attempted to invade Athens but were repelled. And shortly after their failed expansion, divine punishment followed, a flood and earthquake so severe that Atlantis disappeared beneath the sea in a single day and night. The date Plato gives for this cataclysm is staggering, approximately 9,000 years before Solon's time, placing it around 11,600 BCE. That timeline challenges conventional history, which asserts that organized civilization did not begin until at least 5,000 BCE. It raises uncomfortable questions. Could there have been an advanced society long before Egypt, Sumer, or the Indus Valley? If so, how did it vanish so completely that no trace remains in the archaeological record? Over time, countless individuals have tried to match Plato's description with real-world geography. The most common interpretation places Atlantis somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, beyond the Pillars of Heracles. Some propose that the island sank somewhere between Europe and the Americas, possibly near the Azores. Others suggest entirely different locations, from Antarctica to the Caribbean, from the Mediterranean to Southeast Asia. Each theory attempts to align with the details Plato gave: the size, the concentric rings, the rich lands, and the sudden, watery destruction. Yet every theory runs into the same barrier. No definitive ruins, no surviving artifacts, no ancient inscriptions outside of Plato's own writings that reference such a civilization. Still, the resonance of the story persists, and not only because of the dramatic fall. Atlantis challenges the linear progression of history. It suggests that humanity's timeline may be more cyclical, marked not by steady development, but by periods of great advancement followed by abrupt collapse. The idea that we've risen and fallen before, and could again, lies at the heart of why this legend continues to haunt the modern world. It's not just a story of a lost city, it's a cautionary tale buried in time. While no universally accepted archaeological discovery has confirmed the existence of Atlantis, a number of findings over the years have kept the possibility alive. Chief among them is the site of Santorini, an island in the Aegean Sea, formerly known as Thera. Around 1600 BCE, a massive volcanic eruption devastated the island, creating a caldera and submerging much of its landmass. The eruption was one of the largest in recorded history and is believed to have destroyed the flourishing Minoan settlement of Akrotiri, a Bronze Age city whose inhabitants exhibited advanced engineering, fresco artistry, and maritime skills. The city of Akrotiri was buried under volcanic ash, preserving its multi-story buildings, frescoes, and streets in remarkable detail, similar to what happened in Pompeii those centuries earlier. Some have pointed to its abrupt destruction and submerged remnants as a possible real-world inspiration for Atlantis. The Minoan civilization itself, centered on the nearby island of Crete, was once among the most sophisticated in the ancient world, boasting indoor plumbing, elaborate palaces, and a far-reaching trade network. Its sudden decline, following the Thera eruption and subsequent tsunamis, mirrors Plato's description of catastrophic loss. But the timeline poses a challenge. The Minoans fell around 1450 BCE, more than 8,000 years after the supposed fall of Atlantis. While some argue that Plato may have exaggerated or misunderstood the timeline passed down to him, others suggest that his dating might have encoded a symbolic or misunderstood calendar system. Despite this, the physical destruction at Thera remains one of the strongest real-world events, matching the story's themes of sudden catastrophe, cultural collapse, and oceanic submergence. Another intriguing location is submerged beneath the waters off the coast of Cuba. In 2001, a team of researchers using sonar and submersible equipment discovered what appeared to be massive stone structures resting 600 meters below the surface in the Yucatan Channel. The formations included geometric patterns, rectangular blocks, and what some believe are pyramid-like shapes, features that would be unusual for natural formations. Initial media coverage suggested the possibility of a lost city, but further investigation was never fully completed, and access to the data became limited. The depths at which the structures lie would require their submergence to have occurred over 10,000 years ago, aligning more closely with Plato's proposed date. Additional sites have been proposed, such as the sunken city of Dwarka in India, which some archaeologists believe may predate previously accepted timelines of Indian civilization. Off the coast of Japan, the Yonaguni Monument, an underwater rock formation near the Ryukyu Islands, has fueled debate for decades. Some experts claim it is a natural formation, while others believe it is a man-made stepped structure with carved surfaces, suggesting a complex built before rising sea levels consumed it. The global distribution of submerged ruins, often dismissed as anomalies or misinterpretations, raises a recurring question. Could many ancient coastal cities, once thriving centers of unknown civilizations, have been lost during massive sea level rises at the end of the last ice age? Between 10,000 and 12,000 years ago, melting glaciers raised ocean levels by more than 120 meters, inundating vast coastal plains. If advanced cultures existed along those shorelines, their cities could now rest beneath the waves, awaiting rediscovery. What ties these locations together is not definitive proof, but a pattern, evidence of catastrophic upheaval, submerged architecture, and sudden cultural collapse. In the absence of clear answers, these clues remain tantalizing fragments of a puzzle stretching back into the mist of prehistory. Whether any of them are Atlantis is unknown, but they demonstrate that the Earth has a memory of destruction, and that we may still be uncovering its forgotten chapters. Mainstream scholars have long approached the story of Atlantis with skepticism, often viewing it as a work of pure allegory rather than a historical account. For many academics, Plato's tale serves as a philosophical construct, a means to contrast an ideal society represented by ancient Athens with a corrupt and decadent one embodied by Atlantis. In this interpretation, Atlantis was never meant to be taken literally, but symbolically. It was a fictional mirror held up to warn against hubris, imperial overreach, and the dangers of moral decline. The specificity of the description, its geography, measurements, and chronology, is seen not as historical reporting, but as rhetorical strategy, intended to lend realism to an invented tale. Dr. Julia Annis, a professor of philosophy at the University of Arizona, has argued that to search for Atlantis as if it were a real place is to fundamentally misunderstand Plato's intent. In her view, the Atlantis dialogues were not even about the lost city itself, but about political theory and the nature of human society. This interpretation is echoed by many in the classical studies community, who point out that Plato often employed mythic devices and narrative frameworks to illustrate complex philosophical ideas. Even archaeologists who accept the possibility of ancient civilizations with advanced technologies remain cautious. There is, as of yet, no definitive evidence, no inscriptions, artifacts, or geological data that place a civilization of Atlantis' scale in the prehistoric world. The lack of contemporaneous accounts outside of Plato is often cited as a major strike against its historicity. Ancient Egyptian records, though vast and detailed, make no mention of Atlantis or a comparable cataclysmic event that destroyed a massive island empire. Similarly, Mesopotamian records, which date back thousands of years, are silent on the subject. In geological terms, the sudden disappearance of a landmass the size Plato describes, larger than Libya and Asia combined, should have left behind some physical evidence, an underwater shelf, a sunken plateau, or massive tectonic scars. While underwater anomalies have been found, none meet the full scope of Atlantis as detailed in the dialogues. Furthermore, there are no known fault lines or volcanic systems in the central Atlantic that could explain such a large-scale submersion occurring in a single night, as Plato describes. Other inconsistencies further complicate a literal reading. Plato's Atlantis is said to have warred with Athens before 9000 BCE, but archaeological evidence indicates that Athens as a structured society did not exist at that time. The classical city-states of Greece began forming several millennia later. This chronological mismatch suggests either a symbolic timeline or an error in translation or oral transmission of the story. Despite these discrepancies, the fascination with Atlantis continues to influence even cautious scholars. Some, like the late archaeologist Dr. Spiridon Marinatos, have entertained the possibility that real historical events, such as the destruction of Thera, may have formed the basis of Plato's myth. This perspective does not treat the Atlantis account as a direct historical record, but as a distorted echo of events passed down through centuries of storytelling. In this view, Atlantis may not have existed in the way Plato described it, but it may still reflect a cultural memory of disaster, displacement, and collapse. In the end, conventional scholarship accepts that ancient civilizations rose and fell, often dramatically, but it remains wary of attaching those histories to myths unless supported by direct evidence. For most historians and archaeologists, the story of Atlantis belongs to the realm of allegory. A powerful tale, yes, but one meant to guide moral reflection, not map ancient geography. Still, the possibility of a forgotten chapter in human history lingers, even among those committed to the cautious methods of scientific inquiry. The debate over Atlantis does not end with the cautious conclusions of mainstream academia. In fact, some of the most compelling energy surrounding the mystery comes from the persistent contradictions and open questions that refuse to be neatly resolved. Scholars may dismiss Plato's account as allegory, yet the vivid detail he provides continues to provoke curiosity. If Atlantis was meant as a mere metaphor, why the insistence on precise locations, lineage, laws, and measurements? Why include specific references to natural resources, architectural techniques, and the political structure of a long-lost civilization? A major point of contention lies in the timeline. Plato's claim that Atlantis fell 9,000 years before Solon's time places its destruction around 11,600 BCE, a date that curiously coincides with the end of the Younger Dryas, a sudden and dramatic shift in global climate that brought the last ice age to a close. This period is marked by geological evidence of rapid sea level rise, massive flooding, and the extinction of many large animal species. Ice core data, sediment layers, and fossil records from around the world confirm that this was a time of massive environmental upheaval. The alignment of this date with Plato's chronology has led some researchers to suggest that his story may be based on a fragmented memory of a real event, perhaps preserved through oral tradition for thousands of years before it was ever recorded in writing. The notion that human civilization may have reached a level of complexity earlier than believed, only to be wiped out by global catastrophe, challenges the linear model of human progress. It suggests that our species may have risen and fallen before, and that echoes of these cycles survive as myths and legends. Further complicating the picture is the presence of similar flood myths in cultures across the globe. The Epic of Gilgamesh, the biblical story of Noah's Ark, the Hindu tale of Manu, the Greek myth of Deucalion and Pyrrha, and dozens of indigenous stories from the Americas and Oceania all speak of a great deluge that wiped out an earlier age of man. While the details differ, the core elements are strikingly consistent. A proud civilization, divine retribution, and a cataclysmic flood. Are these merely symbolic archetypes, or are they scattered pieces of a shared prehistoric memory? In addition to flood myths, many ancient cultures also speak of sunken lands and vanished worlds. The Celts spoke of Ys, a kingdom swallowed by the sea. Hindu texts mention Atala, one of several lost continents. Polynesian legends recall Hiva, an ancestral homeland now beneath the ocean. These stories span thousands of miles and generations, yet they share an eerie thematic resemblance. The repetition raises the possibility that these are not isolated tales, but cultural echoes of real events that occurred in deep antiquity. Even within the scientific community, there are dissenting voices that challenge the conventional historical timeline. Researchers like Dr. Matt Robert Schock have argued that certain ancient structures, such as the Sphinx, show evidence of water erosion inconsistent with their accepted age, suggesting they may be far older than believed. Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson have popularized the idea of an advanced pre-Ice Age civilization that was wiped out during global cataclysms, pointing to geological data and unexplained anomalies in ancient architecture as supporting evidence. What continues to fuel the mystery is the lack of finality. For every expert who closes the case, there are unanswered questions, alternative interpretations, and newly emerging data that suggest we may not know the whole story. The narrative of Atlantis refuses to stay buried, not just because of its romantic allure, but because the framework we've built for understanding our ancient past may still be incomplete. The gaps in our knowledge are where the legend breathes, and it is in those gaps that the lost world of Atlantis continues to cast its shadow. Among the many theories that attempt to explain the Atlantis enigma, the fringe and speculative interpretations form an entire universe of possibilities, some more grounded than others, but all fueled by the same driving force: the belief that mainstream history is only part of the story. These ideas, often dismissed by conventional academia, explore the possibility that Atlantis was not just a lost city, but the remnant of a forgotten epoch. An age of advanced knowledge, cosmic awareness, and technologies beyond our comprehension. One of the most provocative theories proposes that Atlantis was the last surviving colony of a global civilization that predates all known ancient cultures. According to this hypothesis, Atlantis functioned as a central hub for scientific, spiritual, and technological development, potentially drawing on lost energy systems, harmonic engineering, and precise astronomical understanding. Advocates point to megalithic sites like Baalbek, Sacsayhuaman, and Göbekli Tepe as remnants of a shared architectural legacy, their construction reflecting skills not easily explained by the known capabilities of ancient builders. They argue that such structures may be evidence of a once global system of knowledge, one that was obliterated by a sudden and massive cataclysm. This concept is echoed in esoteric traditions, particularly theosophy, which holds that Atlantis was one of several advanced civilizations, along with Lemuria and Mu, that existed in deep antiquity and were ultimately destroyed by their own arrogance and misuse of power. These teachings, rooted in the writings of Helena Blavatsky and later expanded by Edgar Cayce, describe the Atlanteans as possessing psychic abilities, crystal-based technologies, and aerial craft referred to as vimanas. Cayce, the American mystic often called the sleeping prophet, claimed through trance readings that survivors of Atlantis fled to Egypt and Mesoamerica, seeding the rise of future civilizations like the Maya and the dynastic Egyptians. Other fringe theories delve into the extraterrestrial. According to ancient astronaut proponents, the technological feats attributed to Atlantis suggest contact, or even direct intervention, by non-human intelligences. These theorists believe that Atlantis was either a colony established by advanced beings from another star system or a human civilization uplifted by their knowledge. In this view, the Great Flood or destruction of Atlantis may not have been a divine punishment, but a reset triggered to prevent runaway technology or rebellion against these higher powers. Some point to Sumerian texts referencing the Anunnaki, or to ancient carvings of flying objects as hints of this deeper narrative. More speculative still is the theory that Atlantis exists in a parallel dimension or alternate timeline. Proponents of this idea suggest that Atlantis did not physically sink, but rather transitioned into another frequency or plane of existence, its advanced technology based on manipulating energy and vibration to access non-physical realms. This idea is often tied to the concept of Earth's shifting vibrational resonance and the belief that certain sacred sites are energetic portals connecting different dimensions. In this framework, Atlantis may still exist, not beneath the sea, but just beyond the veil of what we perceive as reality. Even the notion of where Atlantis was located becomes more fluid in fringe theory. Some claim Antarctica was the true location, buried under ice by pole shifts and tectonic upheaval. Others believe that the Sahara Desert once held the remnants of Atlantis, pointing to the Richat structure, also known as the Eye of the Sahara, as a possible match for Plato's concentric ringed city. The theory holds that drastic climatic changes turned a verdant land into desert, hiding the evidence beneath layers of sand. These speculative views may lack the empirical evidence demanded by traditional scholarship, but they offer a different kind of lens, one that entertains the possibility that history is not a straight line, but a complex web of forgotten truths, suppressed knowledge, and alternate narratives. Whether symbolic or literal, the idea of Atlantis continues to resonate, not because it offers certainty, but because it invites imagination. In the space where history fades into myth, these theories find fertile ground, and the mystery of Atlantis becomes not just a search for a sunken city, but a quest to understand the deeper roots of human existence. The enduring appeal of Atlantis is not simply in the possibility of its physical existence, but in what it represents on a deeper, symbolic level. Across cultures and generations, Atlantis has evolved into more than a lost city. It has become a mirror held up to humanity's highest aspirations and darkest flaws. Whether it once stood as a real place or never existed outside Plato's imagination, the idea of Atlantis speaks to a universal longing for an age of wisdom, harmony, and balance, a golden era abruptly ended by greed, pride, or cosmic justice. In many ways, Atlantis functions as a collective memory of paradise lost. It reflects the archetypal story of a civilization that reached extraordinary heights, only to collapse under the weight of its own corruption. This theme is echoed in countless myths: the Garden of Eden, the Tower of Babel, even the fall of Rome. Each recounts a rise to greatness, followed by a sudden, often divine reckoning. Atlantis, with its perfect symmetry and godly lineage, fits neatly into this pattern. But what makes it unique is the specificity with which it was described, creating the tantalizing suggestion that myth and memory may be more intertwined than we realize. Psychologically, Atlantis may represent the human fear of forgetting. Just as individuals grapple with personal memory loss, cultures too are haunted by the idea that parts of their origin stories have been erased. The possibility that entire epochs have been wiped away by nature, war, or the slow erosion of time strikes at the heart of our understanding of who we are. Atlantis embodies that fear and that hope, fear that we've lost something essential, and hope that it might still be found. Its mystery invites us to imagine not just what might have been, but what could be reclaimed. Religiously and spiritually, Atlantis has been interpreted in a variety of ways. In New Age and esoteric circles, it is often seen as a spiritual homeland, a place of enlightenment and psychic development, whose downfall warns of the dangers of misusing spiritual gifts. For these traditions, Atlantis wasn't merely technologically advanced, it was metaphysically advanced. Its citizens are imagined as possessing deep understanding of cosmic laws, energy manipulation, and higher consciousness. The destruction of such a place becomes not just a historical event, but a moral lesson encoded in myth, a warning for future ages to balance progress with humility. Atlantis also challenges the dominant narrative of history as a steady ascent from primitive beginnings to modern sophistication. Its story implies a cyclical model, an ebb and flow of enlightenment and loss. In this view, progress is not guaranteed. Civilizations can fall, knowledge can be forgotten, and history can be rewritten. This challenges not only academic models, but cultural assumptions. It forces us to consider the fragility of our own moment in time, and to question whether we too stand on the edge of a precipice we don't yet recognize. Even in popular culture, Atlantis maintains its grip. It has been portrayed as everything from a utopian society to a secret underwater base. It appears in comic books, novels, films, and video games, each reimagining it through a new lens. But beneath all these interpretations is the same question that Plato posed over 2 millennia ago. What happens when a civilization, blessed with everything, forgets the source of its wisdom? Atlantis becomes a parable not of ancient history, but of timeless relevance. In essence, Atlantis is less about a lost island and more about a lost ideal. It is a reminder that greatness without virtue is unsustainable, that knowledge without wisdom is dangerous, and that the highest civilizations are those that remember their origins even as they reach for the stars. Whether or not we ever find it beneath the waves, Atlantis remains a powerful compass, guiding us not to a specific place, but to a deeper awareness of who we are and who we might become if we forget what matters most. Throughout centuries of speculation, scholarship, exploration, and myth-making, Atlantis has remained one of the most enduring enigmas of human imagination. As the evidence has been weighed, dismissed, revisited, and reshaped, several core themes emerge, threads that tie together the various interpretations, theories, and discoveries surrounding the legend. Whether viewed through the lens of archaeology, philosophy, geology, mythology, or spiritual symbolism, the mystery continues to defy resolution. And it is precisely in this unresolved state that the legend of Atlantis finds its power. The most compelling clues begin with Plato himself. His account in Timaeus and Critias remains the only detailed source, yet its depth and precision remain unmatched by other ancient myths. Plato's description of concentric ringed canals, specific measurements of the city, the names of kings, laws, temples, and technologies point to more than casual allegory. The timeline he presents, Atlantis existing around 11,600 years ago, coincides eerily with the end of the Younger Dryas, a period of sudden climatic change and global flooding, supported by ice core data and sediment analysis from around the world. Adding weight to the story are geological events such as the Thera eruption and the discovery of submerged landscapes across the globe. The ruins at Akrotiri, the Yonaguni Monument, the sunken ruins off the coasts of Cuba and India, and the undersea formations near the Bimini Road in the Bahamas all point to the possibility that ancient cities may have been lost to rising seas. While none match Plato's Atlantis perfectly, their existence proves that coastal civilizations have been swallowed by time and water, raising the possibility that others, perhaps greater, remain undiscovered. Compounding the enigma are the countless myths from disparate cultures that echo the Atlantis narrative. From the Aztec tale of Aztlan to the Sumerian flood myths, from ancient Egypt's Zep Tepi to the Celtic story of Ys, these legends describe great civilizations consumed by deluge and divine wrath. While no single tale mirrors Plato's story in full, the global recurrence of this theme suggests a shared memory, perhaps rooted in real events, passed down through generations, transformed by culture and context, and preserved in the guise of myth. Modern fringe theories and alternative historians have extended these parallels into bold claims that Atlantis was an advanced global civilization, that its survivors seeded future cultures, that it possessed knowledge we have not yet regained. These theories often cite architectural anomalies, lost technologies, and linguistic patterns as evidence. While lacking the rigorous proof required by mainstream archaeology, they keep public interest alive and pressure traditional narratives to account for the many unexplained features of the ancient world. Meanwhile, traditional scholars continue to hold firm that Atlantis is best understood as allegory, a masterful creation by Plato to explore philosophical ideals and societal decay. Yet even among these voices, there's an acknowledgement that some myths preserve truth in symbolic form. The possibility remains that Plato's story was a reflection, distorted but not invented, of an oral tradition rooted in actual events, remembered across generations and cultures, altered with each telling, but anchored in a real catastrophic loss. What makes Atlantis so resilient in our cultural consciousness is not a single piece of conclusive evidence, but the collective accumulation of questions. The sudden appearance of a detailed city in a philosophical text, the alignment of Plato's date with known geological shifts, the growing catalogue of submerged ruins, the recurrence of flood myths across civilizations that had no known contact, the strange coincidences, the unexplained anomalies, and the cultural memories that persist across time and place. These are not proofs, but they are patterns. And in the study of ancient mysteries, it is often the patterns that speak loudest, long after the voices that created them have been silenced by time. Atlantis endures not because it has been found, but because its shadow continues to fall across the boundary between myth and memory, fact and faith, history and hope. The legend of Atlantis closes not with certainty, but with enduring wonder, a story that remains open-ended, incomplete, and stubbornly resistant to conclusion. Whether one sees it as a lost civilization, a moral allegory, or a distorted echo of prehistoric events, the narrative continues to resonate because it touches something universal. The fragility of knowledge, the impermanence of power, and the tantalizing possibility that the past still holds secrets vast enough to rewrite everything we think we know. It is the very absence of definitive proof that gives Atlantis its mystique. A sunken city, rich in wisdom and technology, lost in a single night. This is not just a historical hypothesis, but an emotional symbol. It reflects a longing for lost greatness, a sense that human potential has once soared higher, and a fear that it can just as easily collapse. In every era since Plato penned his dialogues, Atlantis has served as both a cautionary tale and an invitation to imagine what might lie beneath our assumptions. Technological advances continue to peel back the layers of Earth's past. Satellite mapping, sonar imaging, deep-sea exploration, and ice core analysis reveal more with each passing year. New data points to lost coastlines, ancient deluges, and sudden environmental shifts. Yet none of these has conclusively led to Atlantis. What they do confirm, however, is that the Earth has seen dramatic changes within the span of human memory. Seas have risen, continents have shifted, civilizations have vanished, and much of our planet's ancient story remains locked beneath ice, jungle, or ocean. In many ways, the search for Atlantis is a mirror of our own search for meaning. We yearn for origin stories that explain not only how we came to be, but what we've lost along the way. Atlantis, whether real or imagined, functions as a reminder that greatness is not immune to destruction. That knowledge, once forgotten, is not easily regained, and that even the most powerful civilizations can vanish if they lose sight of balance between power and principle, ambition and humility. The legend also speaks to the persistence of human memory. Stories passed down orally for millennia can outlast empires, carried in songs, symbols, and myths. Whether Plato's tale was a philosophical construct, a refracted memory of real catastrophe, or a composite of various ancient flood traditions, it reveals that some truths may survive not in stone, but in story. Myths endure because they contain something deeper than dates and names. They preserve human experience, encoded in metaphor, waiting to be interpreted anew with each generation. Atlantis invites us to look again at history, not as a fixed narrative, but as a living puzzle still missing vital pieces. It calls into question the limitations of our records, the gaps in our knowledge, and the possibility that ancient civilizations may have risen, flourished, and perished long before our textbooks begin. Its enduring grip on our collective imagination reminds us that mystery is not the absence of truth, but the presence of possibility. As the waves of time continue to wash over forgotten shorelines and the sands shift over ancient ruins, Atlantis remains, elusive, silent, and unforgettable. It may never be found, but perhaps that is not the point. Perhaps its greatest value lies not in being discovered, but in challenging us to remember what it means to lose something great, and to wonder what else might be waiting to be remembered beneath the surface of our past. Thanks for listening. This has been another episode of Ancient Mysteries. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, subscribe to Ancient Mysteries on Spotify. Subscribe now.